fourth part of lesson 67, we continue to look at putting. And we've talked about the art of rolling the ball, combining with the science or the mechanics of the swing. And what I've been at pains to point out is that the mechanics of the swing are born of great setup and of great preparation. And rolling the ball comes from feel and from instinct. Now, the title of this fourth lesson is an old phrase: an ounce of intent is worth a pound of detail. There are 16 ounces in a pound for you youngsters. Okay, so what we're saying is the desire to do something, if that desire is strong, if the intent is strong, it will cover up a multitude of sins in the mechanics. Just imagine I had a bunch of balloons just with helium in, and they were blowing in the wind. They'd be blowing all over the place, all loose. But if I ran with those balloons, the strings would straighten with the momentum of me running. So let's suppose your putting stroke feels a little bit loose and wobbly. The last thing you want to be worrying about is the journey of the putter head. Okay? You just take it back instinctively and it will track on the line of the shoulders. It's the through swing that you need that intent. So even if your backswing is a little bit out of line, if your intent is good, you can make the ball roll. Okay? So ideally, we're looking to keep it simple and to go back 1 and 2. Just got the left edge of the hole. But you'll play with some people and you can see the putter head tracks well outside the line and then changes direction, and they manage to make it go straight even with a flaw in their putting stroke. I did a conference for Butch Harmon about 8 years ago in Las Vegas, and it was a privilege for me because I was on the same speaking engagement as the Harmon brothers and Tom Fazio, the architect, and Scotty Cameron. And Scotty Cameron is the great putter maker, and he had film of tour pros putter heads, and there are guys on tour that they could actually be robotic. They're so precise in their stroke, they're so well disciplined, their stroke is as pure as a mechanical putting stroke could be built. He then shows a couple of putting strokes that had a slight loop in. And what was interesting was those two strokes were numbers 1 and 2 on tour. So that tells you that putts don't go in the hole just because of mechanics. And that you can have a flaw in your putting stroke, but if your intent is good, the intent will overcome. Now what I can tell you is that if you have a flawed putting stroke and it is a quick backswing, you don't get a chance to repair it. As long as your backswing is deliberate and calm, even if you get the putting stroke quite badly wrong, you can still make up for compensation. And despite the fact that the stroke was flawed, I've got the ball into the right edge of the hole. So, the desire to roll the ball, that's the ounce of intent. If you get that right, you don't have to worry about too much. I taught a good young professional called Paul Ashwell. He's a real pro's pro. He's an England national coach now. And he came to me with a strong grip and poor posture, only hitting 6 or 7 greens around. And I improved his basics and he stuck at it and he learned to grip the club beautifully. He started to shoot in the high 60s. In the second or third summer that I taught him, he came along a bit distraught. I said, "What's wrong, Paul?" He said, "My putting. I'm taking 36, 37 putts around." I said, "Well, what's wrong?" He said, "Well," and he didn't stop talking for 10 minutes. His mind was so befuddled with theory. I said, "Okay, Paul, I'm going to just putt 9 holes. We're going to putt for a fiver over 9 holes. The par's 18. There's a catch. You've got to hold the putter face 45 degrees shut." So that's what we did. We were on the putter green at Woburn. We held our putter heads 45 degrees shut, and we taught ourselves to putt with a face that was terribly shut. And he got round the 9 holes in 20 putts. He was 2 over 2s. Well, I said, "Paul, if you can be 2 over 2s with the face that shut, and you have the skill to compensate, don't worry so much about the millimetres that the putter head might be out." So that's why an ounce of intent is worth a pound of detail. You could be really quite iffy on your putting mechanics. I'm not advocating that, but what I'm saying is if your mechanics are indifferent, as long as the backswing is deliberate, you get a chance. I could be all over the place. Okay, it doesn't matter. The body can compensate. If you rush, however, it doesn't. You need a bit of time. So there's a deliberate nature. I'll just take this putt head slightly outside, okay, and I'll redirect, and there we are. I've hit the ball right down the line, just with pure improvisation. So that's a good example, isn't it? A flawed stroke, but an excellent result.